You're listening to Alaska Real Estate Podcast. I'm Chris Story, your host for great adventures in real estate. Today's program is made possible thanks to Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, your partner in Alaska real estate statewide. For the latest, visit ahfc.us and learn more about the Energy Rebate Program at akrebate.com. I just got a client hooked up through akrebate.com. Awesome. Thank you, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. Please welcome your Regional Vice President, Rick Harris.
So what's your background? How long have you been in real estate, and where have you principally been practicing?
Yeah, so I've been a broker for 25 years. This is my 25th year. March 7th will be my official 25-year anniversary. And I have lived and worked in Southern Oregon that entire time. So my office, been in the same office essentially for most of that time, and in a little community in Ashland, little arts community in Southern Oregon the entire time.
Interesting. I think there's a Shakespearean group that's quite famous.
Oh, yeah, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival is about 2 blocks from my office. And in fact, the reason I got to Ashland in 1984, my wife and I were both designers for the theater. She was a costume designer. I was a theater scenery and lighting designer. And that's what got us to Ashland in the first place, was the dream of working at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. She and I both ended up working at the college, teaching at the university. And she was there for 16 years. I was there for 1 year as a sabbatical replacement. And then after that, I freelanced as a theater designer for a number of years before I got into real estate.
What was that transition like? How do you go from theater, lighting, and consulting then to being a professor, then to real estate? What was that transition?
Well, it was an interesting thing. When I first got in the business, there was an office I really wanted to work with here in town. I was told by a number of people this would be a good place for me to work. And he turned me down 3 times before he would finally hire me. And the story goes that when I went to see him, he said, well, I only hire experienced people. And it took me a couple of times to figure out that my theater experience was actually quite a lot like real estate. I would take inexperienced people, and within 6 to 8 weeks, I'd have a finished product on time, every time. I would take a blank piece of paper and explain what the end product would be like and get hired to do that on a daily basis. So it was really actually quite good training for me being in the real estate business.
Wow, what a cool background. I like that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good story. Well, so you're going to be coming to Alaska. You're going to be helping out with our leadership conference in January. First of all, have you been to Alaska before, or is this sort of a bucket list thing? And then what are you going to be teaching?
Yeah, so in 2004, when I was Oregon State President, it was determined that someone had to join the Alaska Realtors for their annual convention. And danged if they weren't taking a trip up the inland passage on a cruise ship. And somehow I got nominated to be that representative from Oregon to Alaska. So we did the inland passage and ended up in Anchorage, spent a little time with the Realtors on the ship, and then some time with friends in Anchorage. That's been my only experience. And so I'm really looking forward to coming back, because I understand that Anchorage in January is a fabulous place to get a tan.
You're going to see a whole different side of Alaska this go around.
Well, apparently only 4 hours at a time, so I won't see too much except during the daytime.
Touche. Well, what's on deck for us to learn? What are we going to get from you?
Yeah, so I do 2 different things. As part of the leadership conference, I'm the regional vice president, and so as the RVP, my job is to help bring the National Association of Realtors' interests, issues, projects directly to the membership. So we'll be talking about what's going on with the National Association of Realtors, what projects they're working on, their legislative agenda, programs that they're working up of value to the individual members and to the leadership. And then on Wednesday, January 8th, I'll be doing a 3-hour class on negotiation, and that's from the practical aspect of a working realtor, what it's like to negotiate with clients, both for buyers and sellers, and with your listing clients, talking about practical ways to think about negotiation. You know, as a business that really deals with being an interface between buyers and sellers, one of the things that we don't focus enough on is our job as expert negotiators on behalf of our clients. So this class will be 3 hours of practical, in the trenches, hands-on negotiating tools that every realtor can use in a variety of situations working with buyers and sellers.
Is that something you still work on yourself, Rick, is growing that skill of negotiating?
Boy, I get to negotiate every single day, and one of the most important parts that I've learned about it is that there are things that you know, things that you don't know, and things that you really got to be practicing and working on, because if you're not, you're going to get left out. And so I practice at it every single day. But I'm trying to practice at it in a smarter way, from a background of experience and also a background of paying attention to what's going on around me, trying to improve every day. And that's the way I focus the class as well.
I'm looking forward to it, Rick.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you. And definitely, no matter what else Sandy, Ehrenman, or others will tell you, bring your Bermuda shorts and some sunglasses in January to Anchorage.
Yeah, I'll bring the sunscreen. That'll be fabulous.
Hey, you'll get to put some of that theater experience back to work.
Absolutely, you bet. I'll paint a sunshine whenever I go.
Nice. Hey, you know what they say? When you're cool, the sun always shines. So.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Rick, it's been a pleasure.
At least more than once. So.
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you in January.
Look forward to seeing you.
Alaska USA Title Agency brings you Meggin McIntosh, an author and expert on time management and efficiency. Alaska USA Title strives to make your closing efficient, and time management, well, that's what Alaska USA Title Agency's good at. For fast and effective title and escrow, visit AKUSATitle.com and find out why so many Alaskans are choosing Alaska USA Title Agency. Please welcome Meggin McIntosh. Well, Meggin, the reason that I asked you to be on our program today, and I thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. I'd seen in the National Association of Speakers magazine, the Speaker magazine, you had written an article called My Policy, and I adopted your policy. In other words, I created for myself a personal policy, and I think everybody has a set of standards by which you live. And I've been dealing with my 18-year-old daughter, who is getting ready to fly the coop or be shoved out. We're not sure which. But either way, she's going to be out on her own. And I took the article to her, and as a family, we read it, and we all sat down and wrote out, okay, this is my policy. So just for a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about how you got into the speaking business, what it is that you do, and then we'll delve into where you developed your policy and how maybe we can all benefit from that as realtors and self-employed folks. So what's your background?
Well, I was a classroom teacher for a number of years, and I was going to graduate school toward the end of the time when I was a K-12 teacher, and because I wanted to be a professor and I wanted to teach teachers. So I finished my doctorate and moved to Reno to take a position at the University of Nevada, Reno, and it was outstanding. I absolutely loved it, and because it was a university system, of course, there were a lot of policies. And what I found was that as soon as you would ask for something, and you might just think you had a great reason or that you had a wonderful reason for asking for something for the student, that if somebody said, well, you know what, Dr. McIntosh, our policy is, X, then that ended the whole discussion about it. And you just realize, oh, well, it's policy. There's nothing to do. And,
right.
And what I began to realize as a faculty member is I did have particular rules or standards that I used, and if I would just start calling them policies, then it changed my own perception of them, and it changed other people's perceptions of them. One example that I used back then was I wrote letters of recommendation the third Thursday of every month instead of sprinkling it around here and there. And what I found was I became so much more efficient when it became time to get letters of recommendation done, and also it let students know that you need to get me your information, and indeed it will get done. So I wouldn't procrastinate it because it was the third Thursday and that's when I did it. And then I've just carried that into my speaking business, which I went full-time as a speaker about 10 years ago. And
by using the word policy, Meggin, by using the word policy, even just with ourselves, are we a little bit playing a mind game that, oh, well, do we tend to believe it a little bit more and maybe put a little bit more weight into it if we ourselves accept and adopt it as a policy?
You bet. Yes. So I think it isn't just conveying it to other people. It's for individuals or families when they're thinking about it, or offices. Say there's a realty office or any group of people to say, well, you know what are our policies? And it sounds so different and it feels different than just saying, well, what are the rules or what are the guidelines, something like that. And I think there is a different seriousness to it.
Great. And as realtors, we wake up unemployed every day. We work underneath a broker that has a policy and procedure guideline. We work under a set of laws and a massive code of ethics that we adopt on and put onto ourselves, which is very stringent. But personal policies and these things of when will I work with a client? How will I negotiate this, that, or the other? When is my cell phone available? When am I available? One of the policies that I think that I really loved about yours was relative to charity. So talk about how you do some pro bono speaking in your business. How did you adopt the policy where you do X number of pro bono speeches per year, et cetera?
Yeah, it was the kind of thing that, to me, part of the reason, well, I was raised to be of service. My dad was an Episcopalian minister. Our family was just raised that you did good things. We were given a lot. I mean, that was part of our belief system, and it still is my belief system that to whom much has been given, much is expected. And so being able to, whether it was speak to particular groups, pro bono, or do other kinds of work, to define it in such a way that I could explain to myself and to other people, here's what I can accept, and here's what I'm happy to do, and to make it really clear what some of the boundaries for that would be. So I think that if an individual or a family wants to think about, well, we want to be giving, for example, a little bit of money to this group and that group, where, frankly, it doesn't end up making as much of an impact maybe as we would like, or would we rather each year decide on one family to help, one cause to help, one group to help, and have a bigger impact, but to make it a really conscious decision. And then if people call you and ask you to donate or to do something, then you can just say, well, you know what our policy is this. Mm-hmm. And then you can just move right along. And I think potentially it lessens your own guilt, which guilt doesn't serve any of us, unless we're doing something really bad. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the normal, debilitating kind of guilt that can really cause us to lose energy and lose heart.
Because I read that in your policy, and you were very. I thought that was really vulnerable and very forthright. You just put your policy out there for us to read, and I'll put a link to that on this website so folks can go read it. But one of the things was, as I mentioned, the charity. Well, look, I do 6 speaking engagements a year for free. Send me your request, and I'll put it on the schedule. If it's not this year, then perhaps next year. And you can walk away from that feeling fantastic versus, oh man, I just don't think, and that's the guilt you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. Because it's your own personal or your own company policy, you can always you can break it if you want to. And by this I mean, let's just say there's another group that would ask me to speak, and I just think, and there happens to be one group here in town that I do quite a bit of work for. They almost don't even fit. I don't even think about them in my 6, because it's a group that I believe so strongly in the work that they're doing, and when they ask, I go ahead and do it. I don't need to tell anybody. It's my own decision-making process for going ahead and doing something above and beyond, which I think certainly individuals and families can do that.
Okay, if you were to lead a workshop, let's just say that you flew up here to Alaska and you've got a room filled with realtors, how would you begin that workshop or the process of sitting down, identifying the policies that you want to institute or implement in your life? Some of them you may be already are practicing, but don't refer to them as such. Is there a way to get sort of the brainstorming of this process started?
Well, on one piece of paper, I would encourage people to think about any rules or guidelines that they have. And often I find it really useful for people to be thinking about home, because almost everybody has rules in their house, especially if they have other people that live there in their house.
Right.
These small people.
Sure.
And so that you might talk about some families we don't jump up from the dinner table to go answer the telephone. You know, that's just a rule that they have. Well, that could now be renamed as a policy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't, when I grew up, my parents, if they were gone, even though I could be, quote, the babysitter for my brothers, I couldn't have any of my friends over while my responsibility was to be watching out for my brothers. And we just knew that was a rule. They didn't call it policy, but it's that type of thing. So that would be one thing, is for people to think about any rules or guidelines they have at home. But also then to think about what are the places, and have another piece of paper where people write down what are some places related to your work that bug you. Either maybe you feel some resentment around them. So somebody might say, well, you know what? I'm willing to do so much for my clients, and yet when they call me after 10 o'clock at night, I'm immediately upset, and I don't really want to even talk to them. Well, that would be an indicator that they probably need a policy related to the hours within which clients can call.
Also start to identify areas of frustration and
Yes.
say, that's, okay, rather than be frustrated, I'll take control of it and put that into my new policy. Because we're really training people on how to treat us, aren't we? I mean, and if we don't know the rules or the policies by which we wish to live and operate and do business, then we're just going to kind of be subject to their whims and wills.
Yes, and I think it's actually much more fair to clients and customers. We don't want to be coming across in an aggravated way or upset. Nobody is served well by that. And if we go ahead and identify those trouble spots and then do something to prevent them from either remaining trouble spots or becoming problematic, then we've done everybody a service. Certainly ourselves, but we're also serving our clients better, because anytime then we talk to them or whatever the interaction might be, we're feeling great. It used to be my students at the university, they would always say, we hate to bother you, we know how busy you are. And I said, you know what, here's the thing. Your job is to ask. My job is to tell you if I'm too busy or not. Don't you worry about my job.
Right.
I'll work, and I'm not going to worry about yours. I'm not going to come hunt you down, find out if you need help. That's your job. And it was great, because then they could know that I would set a boundary if I needed it, and if I said, yeah, this is a great time, sit down, or sure, I can talk now, they knew it was true, because I'd already told them ahead of time, I'll let you know if it's not.
Meggin McIntosh, name of your company is Emphasis on Excellence Incorporated out of Reno, Nevada. Meggin, what's the best website for folks to look you up?
It's my main website, which will take you to everything else, is Meggin.com, and I have a funny spelling of Meggin, so it's MEGGIN.com. And for people who want to be productive, they will find so many free resources that they're welcome to access there, and they may also email me at Meggin, MEGGIN, at Meggin.com, and if they had any questions or something like that, and I'd be able to get back to them or let them know what might be a good resource.
Terrific. It's been a real honor and a pleasure talking to you, and what's your policy? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that we got to connect.
Well, that's it for this edition of Alaska Real Estate Podcast. Sandy Ernman's your executive producer. For all of us here at Alaska Real Estate, I'm Chris Story, wishing you health, wealth, and prosperity.